Radio. Promoting dialogue.
Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Former Guinean Prime Minister Koseri Fofana received 5-year prison sentence. CSOs call for dialogue following a opposition call in Guinea-Bissau to paralyze the country.
As civil society organizations mobilize among ourselves, the people, because the situation is very deteriorating.
Ghana's President Mahama, in his State of the Nation address, directs NSA to declare runaway officials wanted and freeze their assets.
Unfortunately, some of these suspects are believed to have absconded from the country already. I have directed that they be declared wanted and their assets traced and frozen.
And Nigerian Air Force Chief says Sahel states withdrawal from ECOWAS places increased burden on the country's military. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin in Guinea, where Conakry Court has jailed former Prime Minister Ibrahima Kosari Fofana for 5 years on Thursday for embezzlement of public funds, illicit enrichment, and corruption. Fofana, who has been in prison since April 2022, headed the government under civilian President Alpha Condé from May 2018 until the military seized power in the September 2021 coup. Echatiso has more details in this report.
Fofana was found guilty by a special court for financial crimes CRIF set up by Guinea's military leaders shortly after taking power. Judge Lansana Suma of the Conakry court said the former premier was also ordered to pay a fine of 2 million Guinean francs, around $230,600 or 220,000 euros, and 18 billion Guinean francs in damages and interest. Fofana was accused of embezzling 15 billion Guinean francs earmarked for anti-COVID measures and economic and social programs under President Condé. He is the latest of many former leaders, opposition figures, and civil society members to be detained or brought before the courts under the junta. Guinea's military leaders have promised to prioritize combating endemic corruption in the impoverished West African states. In November 2022, the junta ordered prosecutors to take legal action against former President Condé and more than 180 other officials and ex-ministers for alleged corruption. The Special Anti-Graft Court in December sentenced Mohamed Diane, a highly influential defense minister under Condé, to 5 years in prison for embezzlement, illicit enrichment, money laundering, and corruption of public officials. While Junta Chief General Mamadi Doumbouya has insisted there will be no witch hunts, the opposition has denounced the repression of freedoms and the manipulation of the justice system.
Echatiso filed a report. We head now to a neighboring Guinea-Bissau, where the opposition has vowed to paralyze the country starting today, Thursday, in a dispute over the end of President Umaru Sissoco Embalo's 5-year mandate. Opposition leaders argue that Embalo's term ends today and insist that the president should peacefully step down to allow for a fresh election that would usher in a new head of state. Despite mediation efforts aimed at resolving the political impasse in the country, the opposition parties remain resolute in their plan to ensure that Embalo leaves power on this day, marking the official end of his presidential term. The escalating tensions regarding the electoral calendar raise concerns about potential unrest in a nation that has a history of military coups since gaining independence in 1974. Augustin Coley has more details in this report.
Umaru Sissoco Embalo officially ends his 5-year mandate as the president of Guinea-Bissau amid rising tensions and fears of unlikely events following his extended stay in office. Elected in 2020, Embalo announced that presidential and legislative elections will not be held until November 30, 2025, while the country's Supreme Court of Justice has ruled that Embalo's term ends on September 4. The opposition political parties, for their part, insist he evacuates no later than today, February 27. While no visible threats have surfaced in the country, political and governance experts express concerns about the impact of these conflicting decisions in the politically unstable nation. Ibrahim Makan is an African Union governance expert.
As far as Guinea-Bissau is
a country under rule of law, because if the date of the election comes after the end of his own term, there is a problem there. And the fact that the Constitutional Court has decided by September, by that date, he will hand over power. Now, what will happen between September and November? That depends on the Constitutional Court. So I think here what we need is to make sure that the decision of the Constitutional Court is implemented and it binds all the different institutions of the country. So the president has to accept that.
Last week, ECOWAS deployed a mission to Guinea-Bissau in an attempt to resolve the political impasse and electoral calendar, among others. Mbalo, 52, last year indefinitely postponed the November parliamentary elections, citing technical and financial difficulties as reasons for the delay. The legislature was dissolved after Umaro Sissoco Mbalo struggled to have absolute executive power and at least 2 attempts to overthrow his presidency, with the most recent occurring in December 2023. This incident was characterized by gunfire and clashes in the capital, with some 23 soldiers arrested in the plot, sentenced by a military tribunal weeks ago. In the meantime, all eyes are on Guinea-Bissau for actions that could potentially protect or harm its fragile democracy.
Augustin Coley filed that report. Meanwhile, reactions have continued to trail the call by the opposition in Guinea-Bissau to paralyze the country as the political situation in that country gets worse. This is coming following a dispute over the expiration date of Umaro Sissoco Embalo's presidential mandate. Reacting to this, Erickson Mendoza, a social activist for the defense and promotion of civic participation among young people, says dialogue is the only way forward as the country cannot afford to be plunged into a crisis that will distort the democracy enjoyed in Guinea-Bissau.
Era só em jeito de agradecimento a todos vocês que decidiram solidarizar com a Guiné-Bissau, porque é importante.
In Guinea-Bissau, and it is very important that we here as civil society organizations mobilize among ourselves the people, because the situation is very deteriorating.
Votamos poder conforme eles querem, tendo a boa vida que eles têm, e deixam a população na pobreza.
We need to take into consideration the well-being of the people. Also, speaking to international commissions such as ECOWAS, yes, we need this help. Other people who are living outside Guinea-Bissau, yes, they know the situation happening in Guinea-Bissau, and it seems what is happening is legit, but no, it isn't. So interventions is really important for us. So sharing information on what is happening to other international media is really important.
Erickson Mendoza is a social activist in Guinea-Bissau. We will keep you posted as development unfolds in that country.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We head down to Benin, where parliamentary sessions resume this Thursday in the National Assembly, an extraordinary session which will last at least 15 days. The deputies of the 9th legislature began by examining 7 major bills aimed at modernizing the legislative framework and strengthening the efficiency of Beninese justice. Among the texts was a draft law on the legal framework for traditional chieftaincy, which aims to formalize the place of traditional authorities in the socio-political organization of the country. In the coming days, the parliamentarians will also work on the draft framework law on construction and housing intended to regulate the housing sector to ensure harmonious urban development. On the judicial front, the session will study the amendment of law on the status of magistrates of the Supreme Court, as well as the status of magistrates of the Court of Auditors. These reforms aim to adapt the legal framework to the new realities of the judicial sector. Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama earlier on Thursday presented his first State of the Nation address in Parliament. The address, which is part of his constitutional mandate, sets the tone for his administration's professed ambitious resetting Ghana agenda aimed at reviving the economy, creating jobs and restoring stability as the country grapple with economic distress, rising inflation, and high unemployment.
Our economy is in crisis and our people are suffering unprecedented hardships. Mr. Speaker, we will host a national economic dialogue on March 3rd and 4th. On March 11th, the Minister of Finance, on my behalf, will present the budget estimates for the financial year 2025 to this August House. These two events will allow us to present the real state of Ghana's economic crisis to the people. Mr. Speaker, it is not my style to lament and shift blame when confronted with challenges. My approach is to accept challenges and work hard to resolve them. Indeed, this is precisely what the people of Ghana elected me to do. I have therefore not come here to lament on the state of our country, though there's much to lament about. We have inherited a country that is broken on many fronts. The profundities of the challenges confronting us are staggering. We're saddled with staggering debts and glaring signs of almost deliberate and, in some cases, reckless mismanagement of our resources. Mr. Speaker, not even the restraints of an IMF program were enough for the previous economic managers to exercise prudence in managing our finances.
Meanwhile, President Mahama has directed state security agencies to declare officials of the National Service Authority who have fled the country after being implicated in the ghost names scandal as wanted. He further stated that he has directed for the assets of absconded individuals to be frozen and traced as the investigation continues. According to Mahama, the theft of state and public fund is a criminal act, and he firmly believes that such criminal activities must not go unpunished. This follows the discovery of about 81,885 suspected ghost names on the National Service Authority's payroll.
As part of our Operation Recover All the Loot policy, I've already tasked our investigative bodies to bring the culprits of the National Service ghost name scandal to justice. Such brazen theft of public funds must not go unpunished. It is estimated that the criminal addition of some more than 80,000 ghost names could have yielded the suspects over 50 million Ghana cedis every month. Unfortunately, some of these suspects are believed to have absconded from the country already. I have directed that they be declared wanted and their assets traced and frozen until investigations are completed.
Ghana's President John Mahama speaking there. In Mali, authorities are adopting new measures to regulate the gold sector, which is strategic for the national economy but faces major security and environmental challenges. The Malian government adopted several decrees on Wednesday aimed at restructuring and securing the artisanal mining sector following several deadly accidents that occurred in illegal gold mining sites, according to the Council of Ministers. This text specified organization and operation of funds created by the mining law of August 2023. Christopher Tisha completes the story.
Among them, a fund for the rehabilitation and securing of artisanal mining sites will finance the closure and rehabilitation of abandoned sites, as well as the fight against the use of prohibited chemicals. A fund for financing the promotion of mining sector, funded by the contributions from mining companies, will support the development of capacities in the field. Other funds will be dedicated to mining infrastructure, transport and geological research. These reforms come after several tragedies related to illegal gold mining. On February 15, a collapse at the Bilali Koto site in the Kayes region caused the death of at least 48 people, mainly women, according to local sources. This site, formerly operated by a Chinese company, had been abandoned before being taken over by artisanal gold miners. On January 29, a similar incident occurred in the Kangaba Circle, resulting in several deaths. Mali is one of the main gold producers in Africa, with a total production of 72.2 tons in 2022, including 6 tons from artisanal gold mining. That year, gold represented 25% of the national budget, 75% of the export revenues and 10% of GDP. However, artisanal mining remains poorly regulated and exposes workers to precarious conditions with risks of accident and environmental impacts linked to the use of mercury and cyanide.
Christopher Tisha filed that report. Here in Senegal, the nationwide strike organized by the Autonomous Union of Health Workers has entered its second day. The strike, which began on Wednesday, comes on the heels of a social dialogue scheduled by the state for today, Thursday. The dialogue, which began earlier this evening, had Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko in attendance and aims to find lasting solutions to the socio-economic challenges facing the country. The dialogue, announced last Friday by Sonko at the National Assembly, has been welcomed by the country's trade union centers. The unions will add the dialogue some media demands and are urging the government to engage in an open discussion. Well, we'll bring you all the details and updates on that dialogue. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar and on wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Former Guinean Prime Minister Kosori Fofana receives 5-year prison sentence. CSOs call for dialogue following a opposition call in Guinea-Bissau to paralyze the country. Ghana's President Mahama, in the State of the Nation address, directs NSA to declare runaway officials of NSA wanted and freeze their assets. And still ahead in the news, Nigerian Air Force Chief says Sahel states withdrawal from ECOWAS places increased burden on the country's military. We do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org, and we urge you to follow our live stream on YouTube and Facebook. Nigeria's Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, says the recent withdrawal of Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali from ECOWAS has placed more burden on the country's military. Abubakar said this at the opening of the first quarter meeting with branch chiefs, air officers commanding and commanders on Wednesday in Abuja. He said that the withdrawal of the Alliance of Sahel states from the existing security frameworks had disrupted the existing security framework in the region. Abdullah completes the story.
According to him, this development has direct implications for the multinational Joint Task Force MNJTF, which plays a crucial role in countering Boko Haram and ISWAP across Nigeria, Niger, Chad and Cameroon. He said with AES member states opting out and Chad considering withdrawal, the MNJTF's capacity to conduct joint operations is now significantly affected. The CES said that the Sahel region had continued to be a hotspot for terrorism and insurgency, with Al-Qaeda-affiliated extremist groups exploiting weak governance structures to expand their influence. He added that the porous borders in Lake Chad Basin had also allowed the extremist elements to sustain their activities, posing a persistent threat to regional stability. According to Abubakar, the Gulf of Guinea also remained vulnerable to maritime crimes, including piracy and illegal oil bunkering, necessitating sustained aerial surveillance and stronger regional cooperation to bolster maritime security. He added that addressing these challenges requires a unified approach, emphasizing coordinated air operations, intelligence sharing, and strategic partnerships. Nigeria's military said the meeting, among other things, will provide a valuable opportunity for the review of the security landscape of Nigeria in 2024, while critically assess their operational successes and challenges and project actionable strategies for the Nigeria Air Force operations in 2025.
Abdullah Hassan reporting there.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters and all. This is a guest.
We'll continue on our focus on Guinea-Bissau, where the opposition has vowed to paralyze the country starting from today in a dispute over the end of President Umaru Sissoco Embalo's 5-year mandate. Opposition leaders argue that Embalo's term ends today and insist that the president should peacefully step down to allow for a fresh election that would usher in a new head of state. Already, the Constitutional Court has set September 2025 as the set date for Embalo to step down, while elections are expected to be held in November. Our guest, Ibrahim Akanda, an expert on governance with the African Union, called for adherence to the Constitutional Court's order.
When you are a president and you are running a country, you know that your term has an end and that you need to organize election. And I think for him, this is even his second term. So you need to prepare. The president, the incumbent president, has the responsibility to organize the election, to make sure that the elections are free, fair, and transparent. and also to make sure that when his successor is elected, to organize a smooth succession plan. So everybody knows which year he was elected. Everybody knows which year his term will end. But now for the modality and the details of the handing over of power, that depends on many, many factors. And I think because we have a constitutional system in Guinea-Bissau, the Constitutional Court has a say on that. And in this regard, the Constitutional Court has even by September for the end of his term. So now the whole question is, are we going to have election between now and that period so that the handover can happen? That is, for me, one of the most important question. It's not the issue of when his term will end. When are we going to have the election and to get the successor to President Ballo so that there is a continuity in the functioning of the state of Guinea-Bissau?
But there is a divided view regarding his extended stay in office. Why he has announced election to be held in November, the Supreme Court, as you stated, has set September 4 as his last day in office. How will these separate opinions affect the current governance of the country?
Definitely it will affect, because of as far as Guinea-Bissau is a country under rule of law, determine himself the date of the election. Because if the date of the election comes after the end of his own term, there is a problem there. And the fact that the Constitutional Court has decided, so by any means, by September, by that date, he will hand over power. Now, what will happen between September and November? That depends on the Constitutional Court. If you recall, we had similar situation in Senegal. What we need is to make sure that the decision of the Constitutional Court is implemented, and it binds all the different institutions of the country, because the Constitutional Court is the supreme judicial institution of the country, as the Constitution of Guinea-Bissau has said. So the president has to accept that by September he has to leave. And by the way, ECOWAS as an entity has in the past played an important role in this regard, and we hope that ECOWAS will play an important role in this again in this new context. And from what I know, ECOWAS has already started that conversation with the local authorities.
Now, talking about ECOWAS and other regional bodies like UNOWAS as well, how would you describe, with the visit of ECOWAS and UNOWAS mediation team, do you think there have been any significant impact, or they will have any significant impact on the current unfoldings in the country?
They are still talking, which is a good thing. And ECOWAS, despite the problem that it is facing in the region, with many countries, ECOWAS is doing its best. And I think within ECOWAS, there is a country that has always played an important role in Guinea-Bissau, which is Nigeria. And I think Nigeria needs to step in and to really help to harmonize the view of the different actors, because President Ballo he can't participate in the election. That's one thing. Two, if you want really a good legacy in this country, he needs to organize the election in the best way that we can do in a country like Guinea-Bissau.
Ibrahim Khan is a legal practitioner and a governance expert. But let's join Saglu Janko for sports news.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. The first round of the qualifiers for the CAF Women's African Cup of Nations Morocco 2026 concluded on Wednesday night, with Algeria, Mali, Togo and Kenya among the teams that excelled and advanced to the second round. The opening round of the qualifiers featured impressive performances from many teams. Algeria stood out with a commanding victory over South Sudan, winning 5-0 and 3-0, confirming their dominance. Meanwhile, Mali, led by the talented Aisha Jara, inflicted a heavy defeat on Gabon 6-0, 4-1, showcasing undeniable offensive power. Togo secured an emphatic 5-0 win in the return leg against Djibouti following an initial comfortable victory. Kenya, with a solid defensive setup, eliminated Tunisia, securing a 0-0 draw in the first leg before clinching a 1-0 win in the return leg to qualify for the second round of qualifiers, according to CAF official website. Tanzania also booked their spot after a 3-1 home win and a 1-1 draw in Equatorial Guinea, inspired by their standout player Clara Ruvanga. However, the biggest upset came from Ethiopia, who stunned Uganda by winning on penalties 5-4 after two 3-2 draws. Several other teams also solidified their places in the next phase of the competition. The Gambia, DR Congo, Angola, Namibia, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde and Egypt all displayed strength and determination, earning their qualification through solid performances. The second round of qualifiers is set to take place from October 20 to 28, 2025, marking the arrival of Africa's top women's football teams. Heavyweights like Nigeria, South Africa, Cameroon, Ghana, Zambia and Cote d'Ivoire, regional champions and regulars in major continental tournaments, will enter the competition. The upcoming fixtures in the decisive round promise to deliver thrilling classes as these experienced teams battle for a spot in the final tournament in Morocco. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And that's it on this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasted on 94.9 FM in Dakar. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Maudo Juf and Umu Daniel Go for the technical support. To connect with us on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, @WDL News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship environment program, Enviroscope with Abdullah Hassan. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New FM.